Hello everybody, it's Robbie from Southern California, and July 1st. I came out to have some coffee and I thought, it's early and I'm going to do this right now, really early in the morning. I cannot believe we are now halfway through the year. Boy, I don't know where the year's gone, but we're finally into warm weather. We're planting, things are growing. There are my squash. You've seen the video probably, and if you haven't, go check on it. I'm pulling out 6-pound squash out of this. This is all wrapped with tulle. Nothing touches it. It doesn't even matter if it droops. See how sometimes it droops a little bit? I haven't even bothered trying to straighten it out because the main thing is it's keeping everything on the bottom out. I love my tulle. No rats get in there, no squirrels get in there, no skunks. No, nothing. Nothing bothers with it. Yes, the birds can get in, but that's the whole idea. I want the birds to come in. I want the bees to come in. The whole top is open. This has worked out so good. It's not a hit and miss anymore for me on what's going to make it and what's not going to make it. Pretty much, I'm going to say 85% of the fruit, whatever's on there, I've got it, and it's working so good. I don't even know how many bolts I've ordered online. I buy it on eBay because I get it like $10 a bolt, and it's like 40 yards, and I keep buying it, and I'm not going to run out for a while. I've got so much. But anyways, this zucchini's doing really good. As you can see, I've got all those dinosaur kale cuttings that I cut off my big plant. That's taking off now. They're still seeding, so a lot of the plants are growing slow when they throw the seed heads like there. But once I cut the seeds off and once it's out of that mode of wanting to throw seeds, the leaves will start to take off. It will be a little slow in the heat because a lot of your kale and collard, they grow slower in the heat. But no worries, we've got plenty of leaves on it, so it's going to do great. And of course, the tomato. Look at this. I can't believe we keep picking and picking and picking, and the tomatoes just keep growing and growing. This is a whole bunch of volunteers. I don't know what they are, but they're full of little green tomatoes. That one's a volunteer too. So it's doing really good. In other words, if you don't know, a volunteer is a plant that comes up that you didn't plant, that it just decided to grow on its own. Let's step over here. I am now being able to get a lot of stuff growing. I've got more squash I planted there, another squash here. I'm going to do a little bit of a different system here. I'm going to be composting up on top there. It's not really a worm farm, but kitchen scraps will go on top. And when I water it, it's going to run into that. And we'll see how it works. It's working really good on my deck. So I think it's going to work really good out here. I am still working and I am still cleaning out here. This is a work in progress all year. So I move things, change things, whatever I need to do, I do it. And, I can be working in this part of the yard. I can be working in another part of the yard. I can be making videos. So it's not like I, can just do all this overnight. But it's going good. Look at this. Red vein sorrel. And look at the little flowers. That's pretty much it. As far as the flowers, I haven't seen anything but the teeniest, here's some. The teeniest pink flowers, and I have not seen it flower before. So that's really exciting. I thought that was exciting. And then I'm done putting all the stuff in that bin, and I'm going to start to grow some more squash in there. Zucchini. All right, let's walk through. Let's try to keep this where it doesn't go that long. There's so many other videos I want to do and try to do more individual thoughts of mine and questions that I get. Here is that tulle I put up early in the year. Can you believe it is going strong? It looks as good as the day I put it up. Even the pom-poms that I used a glue gun and put on are still hanging on. Not one has fallen off. Isn't that amazing? These are just on those green stakes, the tomato stakes you get. And if you wonder why I would put pom-poms, in case I come out here in the evening and I bend down, I don't want to poke myself in the eye. Learned that from my dad, who did poke himself in the eye once. He was okay, but he did have to go get stitches. So when I remembered that as a little kid, him running to the hospital late at night, I always am very careful where I bend at night. But look at that. It's worked out so great. And look at all the stuff I've got growing in here. I've got green sorrel. I've got walking onion all through here. More green sorrel, more walking onion, more green sorrel. There's some mint in there. Dinosaur kale cuttings. Flowers, curly kale down there. This is my purple tree collard. I think it's going to be the only one that makes it. I had 3 of them, and one decided not to grow at all. The other one is hanging in there, but we'll see what happens. But that one seems to be doing good. So we'll see what happens with that. But look at this. I could not grow in this wall. In these bricks, these cement bricks, I would plant things and the squirrels would come and they'd pull everything out and the rabbits would munch on it. They don't want to touch this stuff. This is not bird netting. In case you haven't seen any of my other videos, this is tulle. This is netting they make wedding dresses out of and different fabric for dresses. It's basically for dresses. And they can't get caught in this, the birds. See, it's very tiny. They don't get caught in it. Bird netting is different, and they do get caught in it and they can die. This hasn't hurt anybody. The only thing with this is the rodents. Anything with tiny nails, they don't want to touch this. Their nail gets caught in those tiny, tiny little holes, and they think it's a trap. And they spring back, and it's like, I don't want to mess with that, and they leave. I love that stuff. Same thing here. Now this I want to open up a little bit. The squash got really big. Obviously, I thought it was zucchini. It is not. Why is it not? Because it's round, number one. So it's one of the seeds that came off my property here. So it's probably a hybrid between some sort of pumpkin or other squash. It could be a cross between zucchini and spaghetti squash. I don't know, but it's trying to leave. Squash doesn't like to be constrained, I found out. As soon as you constrain the leaves and squish them like that, they seem to slow down on growing, but now that it's reached the top, it's going to take off. So when you're using tulle, give it space. You don't have to in the beginning, because tulle, you can move it anytime you want. But just give it a little freedom, give it a little space, and then it will do really, really good. As far as the tomatoes, that's that old plant I was going to take out, because this is all that it has, this old stump. And look at this. It's taken off. It's full of tomatoes. Is that amazing? All through there, and it keeps growing. So let it stay. It's fine with me. This is beautiful. Look at this. See all the pollinators in there? Teeny little flies. They are doing the job for me. I've had to pollinate a couple early on, but now I don't have to. I had bees in here this morning. Don't worry about the ants. They pollinate for you too. And here's my peppermint and another little tomato I stuck in here. And look, it's already full of tomatoes. So we're going to have a lot of tomatoes. I'm really excited about that because we've got so many tomatoes. Now, the ginger table, turmeric table, and stevia. The stevia is doing great. I only had to do a one-time buy on that. Bought that a couple years ago at, I think it was Lowell's I walked in, and it had a whole bunch of little plants. The original pot is still back there. That's the original pot. There was a whole bunch of little plants in one little pot, so I kind of separated them. And it's either coming up from the roots and seeds, it just keeps coming back. Every year it dies back when it gets very cold in the winter. But look how good it's doing. Now, let's look at the ginger and turmeric. Very easy to tell apart. Turmeric. See the big leaves? And this is ginger. So if you planted it together and decided you want to put some ginger and turmeric in one pot, you will know right away which is which. Because all the turmeric has the large leaves. Ginger has the skinny leaves. And ginger is coming up all through here. And I'm going to uncover this soon. And there, let me move this. Back there, as you can see, is more turmeric. And usually the stalk is bigger too, see? So I've got the turmeric and the ginger all coming up, all through here. And without a doubt, I know which is which. This is exciting to me. This is my black turmeric. I did buy this online. And look at there. Now, why would I get so excited over this when Gary's is so much bigger? There's another one right there. because the piece I planted is about that big. It was 2 pieces that broke off when they came in the shipment. You know, when we had it shipped to us, there were 2 pieces that had broke off in the shipment. So I took the 2 teeny pieces. You know, we could take a peek so you can see what I'm talking about. That's it. That's the whole piece. And it's a skinny little piece, and it's just starting to grow, and the other one is the same. And it's probably buried further down. So I'm going to have black turmeric. And Gary took the big piece, which was, they call it a hand. It's as big as your hand. And he's got that growing around this pond, and it's getting big fast. But that is coming up. So I'll have my own little bit of black turmeric. I figured he loves this turmeric. So you take the big piece, and I'll take the 2 little pieces that broke off. And it worked out so well. I'm so excited with that. But this table, why do I grow everything here? Because when I finally started planting the ginger and turmeric here, and they just loved it, I thought, why move it? Why not, you know, just leave it here? Obviously, it gets morning sun, which it's just starting to get as the sun is coming up and starting to show through the trees. And then it doesn't get the hot afternoon sun for the summer. So it seems to like it. It's perfect. So as soon as you find someplace, leave them. Let them grow where they like. Because sometimes you can buy plants that people will tell you, oh, they don't grow. Well, they can grow. You know, it's sometimes you just have to find the microclimate in your yard. This is doing it real quick over here. I have not gotten to my blueberries yet. I've got 2 varieties of blueberries, and I just don't know. Look at them. They've got blueberries on. We've been eating blueberries. The blueberries that are ripening in the pot there, we've been eating them. It's so funny. I just haven't figured out where I want to plant them yet. It's not that I haven't gotten to them. It's every time I go to plant them, it's like, I don't know where to plant them. So I'll figure it out as we go. But okay, so that's the ginger, that's the yard. Look at that, work in progress, and it's doing really good. I'm really happy. I mean, just 2 months ago, it was nothing. And now it's just growing everywhere. I think in 2 weeks, you're going to see even more because the plants are exploding. Everything is great. Look at this. Look at this. We're now in my main yard. I didn't plant any tomato plants in here except for the one atomic back here. It still doesn't look all that happy. That's the Bradley's Atomic Tomato. I bought the seeds online, and we'll see what happens, but they must be temperamental. It's some sort of new variety, so we'll see how it goes. But this, all this, they came up in a pot. There's a pot down here, and they came up in there. And I was going to move them, and obviously I did not. So they're doing really, really good. So I've decided to leave them right now and see what happens. And then, of course, I've got squash growing in there, and I've got to pick squash. But here's another way of doing it. I got some green yarn. You can get some of this at the 99-cent stores and dollar stores. Check them because they get a lot of good stuff that's from bigger, more expensive stores, and the color goes out of style. And that looks really good, too. So I've tied it up. So I use my masking tape, and I'm using green yarn for those of you that said they wanted it to look pretty. That's for you guys. It looks pretty. All right. I think I saw a cucumber again get past me. Oh, yeah. Probably more than the one, because last time I did a video, I pointed, oh, look, there's a cucumber. Look at the baby cucumber there. And while I'm pointing to that one, I look back at the video. It's like, there was more than one. There was a couple of them sitting there. And then I do believe there is zucchini way down there that I'm going to have to get out. See the plants? That's how I do it. I layer. I'm hoping you can see it. Everything's actually in pots with big holes on the bottom. This way, especially as we're getting in the summer now, when I water the pot, I know the plants are getting the water. This way, the plants are getting the water directly to their roots, and then they can send their roots into the container that I've been doing my compost in place. Literally, dumping kitchen scraps, leaves, everything in there, and then their little feeder roots go in there and find it, and it works out good. It works for me. See, it's something like this. I could take this right now. That's a volunteer. That is a squash. I could put pots on top of that and grow right in here. Like I could move that tomato in there. That's just came up in a pot. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do with this because I'm trying to do my yard where I can walk and get to things. I do want a jungle. I like it like that, but I want to be able to get to things. So move around, see what's growing, and that's why I'm not planting purposely in that yet. I could move it. You know, when you're composting and placing a tub and you haven't planted in it, most certainly move it, split it up. I mean, that stuff's alive. So you can move it around and put it in other containers. So I haven't done anything with that yet. And these containers, they're just starting, and I've got basil back here, see? And yes, you are not really supposed to leave the flowers. If you leave the flowers, it won't grow as nice. So I do try to pick the flowers or bring them in and cook with them because you can eat the flowers, and Gary likes the flowers. The dinosaur kale, I'm starting to cut back, as you can see a little bit. Cleaning it up, oh, that's a story I'll have to get into in a minute. But I'm trying to clean it up, get some of the seeds off, but I'm not gonna take all the seeds off. Even though I should, because I do like my yard to be for wildlife. I enjoy that. It's something I've enjoyed since I was a little kid. And I really do enjoy all kinds of wildlife, even stuff that people don't like. If I was doing a farmer's market, if I was selling my produce, I of course would not grow in the manner of which I grow in my garden, because my production won't be as big as it should be. So for me, this is not. This is my garden. This is for us to eat. We have more than enough food, as you can see. So I kind of do it more where it's for nature, and I let nature do its thing for me. And it's working. It's really working. Sometimes it doesn't, but you know, experiment. It's a plant. If it doesn't work, you do something else. Let me swing you around for a minute. There's a cutting I still have not moved of a purple kale. This is celery that came up from last year. It's flowering and doing really good. These are peppers I should move. Just some hot peppers that grew and I haven't done anything. And a little bit of the dinosaur kale, kind of like a little nursery there. My lemon verbena. And let's see what's back here. Let me move the chair for a minute. The mushroom plant is making a comeback. See all the green foliage? And there's back there too. Because mushroom plant does not like the cold weather. And then there I'm starting to take the tree colored and put them in containers, and then I can move them once they set root. And that's what's going on there. And there's a weed coming up in the back. I'll just pull it out, break it up, and put it back in. And that's basically it. Let's swing back around. Here, the darndest thing was going on. Something was coming through. They've stopped now, and they were chewing the tops of my dinosaur kale off. And what was odd was they were piling it on the ground. It's gone now. All the piles are gone. I did not move them. And I didn't say anything at first to Gary. I just watched a pile grow. And I'd have this pile of dinosaur kale. I thought, what's going on? Because a rabbit or a squirrel isn't going to chew off the top and then just leave them to dry out. It didn't make any sense to me. I didn't know what it was. And then I figured out with Gary what it was. I asked him, are you cutting my dinosaur kale and dropping it on the ground? And he said, no. We'll get to that in a minute as I go on with my garden tour. What that was. Lemon verbena. Look at this. Is that beautiful when you cut the top? And then it will just take off and grow bushy like that. Oh my gosh, we use that in our tea with our spearmint. I love spearmint with lemon verbena and a little bit of stevia. Just blend it up. Put it in a teapot with a strainer and then pour it into water all day. It's so good. Let's see, my tomatoes. They're doing good. Aren't these beautiful all through the winter and they're still going good? Got to clean up the plant a little bit. I should do some cuttings off the plant because I want to make sure I get the same variety. All you have to do is take a piece of the plant, a shoot, something like that, take the flowers off and stick it in some soil and water it. This would be perfect here. See, it's an offshoot. It's kind of like a sucker. So that's how you would make another plant, a clone off your plant. And then my purple sprouting broccoli. We have had lots of that. It's gone to seed. I did leave it. We did eat a lot. I ate a lot of this raw. I actually never cooked it. The birds have been eating the seed. I did not collect the seed because I've got too much other things going on. I've got my regular sprouting broccoli here, and then I've got collard that went to seed, and it would have hybridized between it. I would have ended up with maybe something nice, but it's okay. There'll probably be a bunch of seeds on the ground that will take off growing, and I can move them and see what's going on there. Chocolate mint growing along the bottom in there. On the very bottom on the ground is orange mint. Look at my walking onions. They are walking everywhere. I love walking onions. Everybody should grow walking onions. They're in a container. You can grow that in a flower pot. You can grow it anywhere. That is one of my favorite things to grow. It just seems like you can't kill it and you just keep eating it. You've got green onions all year. It should walk twice. It's walking now, and see how they go on the ground. Technically, what it would do is it would set root there. Those are the baby bulbs. It would see how it falls to the ground. It would set root on the bottom, and you would have a new plant there. But I'll move it. I don't want to move, have it there, so I will end up moving it. And when they're really healthy and happy, you'll have the walking onion there, and they'll send out more walking onions on the bottom. It's kind of like a runner, but it's not, but it grows similar to that. Let's see, the geraniums back there. Trying to thin all this out because I want to either put a container in here or maybe plant more in these containers. I'm not sure yet, but that's the big thing is the sprouting broccoli. What is it, 3-4 years old now? So it's gone to seed. See, here's some, is this purple? Yep. Is it purple? Little bits now. It's towards the end of, as you can see, it's seeding time. It's pretty much done. So I'm going to clear this out so I can get to it because a long time ago, Gary put these bricks there so I can plant in like a flower bed. I was going to make an herb garden, and I guess you could say it's gone far more than an herb garden. So I want to be able to get back there, so I'm slowly clearing things out. And I'm working on water fountains all the time, making new ones, and it's just been so fun. This is heaven, really, to come out here like this morning and have a cup of coffee and be able to watch all the birds come in and see all native wildlife. I just love it. I can't believe how many species of birds we have. Another volunteer tomato coming up. We'll see what happens. I want to get that, staked up a little bit so it can keep going. Let's see what's in here. This is, well, a lot of this came up from seed, so it's kind of a cross between sprouting broccoli and maybe collard. This, I think I lucked out. This looks like it's actually all sprouting broccoli. But when you get these leaves that kind of look like this, then you end up with something that might be a cross, and that's fine. Perfectly good to eat. Tastes great, whether you're using it for a stir fry or in a salad, or I do a lot of different things. I'm not a chef, but I'm a cook. I can just look in the fridge or look in the yard, see what's here, and just throw something together. And a lot of times if I'm making something with, let's say, chicken, I can take greens, put it in a chopper. I've got just this little chopper. It's so great. Throw some chicken in there and some greens. And it looks like sawdust, and you can add it to enchiladas or tacos or anything you're making, and you can get your greens in there and not even know it's there. It's really fun. Pepinos. I did tool this. I had to, because something was getting in here and nibbling on them. So I put tool around it. This is packed. Look at this. It is packed. I should get the heavy tool out. Look at this all through here. There must be 50 of them in there. It's just packed. Now, as far as people ask, what do you do with it? I didn't even know what it was until I found it at the grocery store one day. And then Gary said, grab one, grab one. I think I grabbed 2 that day. I use them different ways. You can use them in this manner right now where they're not really ripe. So you're using them when they're still hard. And I actually mix them in if I'm making a vegetable or meat dish to cook. And you don't have to cook them, but I mix them in that way, and it kind of adds more vegetables to our food. But if you wait until they're soft, they're sweet. That's all I can say. I don't know that much about them. It's just an interesting fruit, I guess you would say. But the tool has really helped. Put a couple rocks around the bottom to hold the tool. And now, whatever comes in at night, whether it's rats or skunks or squirrels, anything, nothing's touching it. And then I've got some walking onion in there. And see, chop and drop. When I'm working the garden, I just chop things and drop things in there, and then I can cover it with soil, or I can cover it with wood chips or whatever I want. Oh, yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, I'm looking at the spearmint. Back here, I really haven't done anything. So it's still a volunteer tomatoes coming up. I didn't even see that. I just see it now. Walking onions are in there. There is some little collard in those hybrids I told you that are growing in there. There's my curry plant. I haven't even used the curry plant yet. I saw it, I liked it, I bought it, and look how big it gets. I have to keep chopping it down. It's very similar to rosemary, the texture, but it smells good. I'm smelling it now, so I should do something with it, but I like it. So I only bought one plant, and that was a couple years ago. Look how it's in a pot in that container, and it's growing really good. Tomatoes, look at the tomatoes. I'm gonna have tons and tons of tomatoes. So I got tomatoes growing. I'm still working on here. I've got the celery. This is called peppermint stick. Look how red it is. Now, as it gets bigger, it's not as red. But, you know, I can't really tell the difference. Somebody, I can't remember their name offhand, asked me if it was spicy and hot. No, it's no different than any other celery, and I use it in green drinks. I use it for cooking and eating and salads and everything. The only thing I can think of if you're having it strong is it needs more water. I will say that celery needs a lot of water. And even if you think you've watered it enough, if you didn't, it will let you know. It will droop. And then you got to hit it with more water. So it does like a lot of water. And I'm thinking maybe the lack of water and maybe the soil, something in the soil made it hot and spicy, but I have not had that problem. We've got a few of these around. More tomatoes back here, more walking onions, and that is my whole field of collard, and that's all seed. I started to trim some of it out, but the birds have been coming in with their babies, and I don't want the birds to not have the food. I don't need that right now, so I have left that for the birds. We have hundreds of birds that come in here. So I'll leave a lot for the birds because that seed's going to be done fairly soon. And then once it's done, I'll trim it back and then we'll get all the leaves. Now let's swing around and talk about what was doing a number to my dinosaur kale. This is celery, old celery. I didn't plant anything else in there. I might put a pot in there and plant something else in there. And lemon verbena. And this thing I just haven't got to. It's some sort of turnip that got big and it grew seeds. So I'm going to work in there and do something with there. There it is. Let me see if you can see this. The funniest thing on that, this is wood chips. You see the wood chip? Look at the size of this stuff. Do you see how big that is? Do you know what that is? We didn't put it there. Nope, I didn't put it there. I was coming out here and I would find a pile of wood chips. When I'm saying wood chips, I'm talking about big chunks like this. I would come and I'd find a whole pile sitting there. And I thought, now why would Gary throw a whole pile of big wood chips? I know he collects a lot of those in the winter and he puts it in the fireplace, but why leave it where you're walking in and out of the door? And the pile would get bigger and then it would disappear. The next day it would disappear. I finally asked him, are you doing that? He said, no. When did that start? I said, it started about a week ago. That was the same time the dinosaur kale was getting chopped down and left, mind you. We stand here looking and we look at this. Oh my goodness. And it is on both sides. I don't think you can really see it, but it's down here too. Look at the big pieces. These are huge pieces. That piece is over 12 inches long. So Gary set a trap, and lo and behold, it was what he thought. It was a pack rat. Can you believe that a pack rat, and I saw the babies, there was a pair of them. They were playing in the yard, and they're so cute. I thought they were deer mice at first, but it turned out it was a pack rat. And I put a camera out here. He did catch it, and we saw it was a pack rat, and we let it go. But I put a camera out here, and this little guy would be dragging big pieces of wood, and he's building a nest. I don't know if I'm going to leave him. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but he obviously is underneath this cement. He's built himself his own beautiful condo, and that's what they do, and that's what's scary. These pack rat nests, some of them, they can be 8 feet long, 4 or 5 feet tall. They can be as big as they want them, and they drag all kinds of stuff in. And what they were doing is they were cutting down parts of my dinosaur kale down there, and he was letting them slightly dry. This is fascinating on their life. And then he was bringing it here after a couple days that the ends would dry. And what he's got in here is they make bedrooms and pantries. If you look it up, they actually make what they call a condo. Usually it could be one living in there, but he might have a girlfriend. It might be a couple more will end up coming in here. And they have a pantry, and then they also have, like I said, their bedrooms. They make their nest big because if a coyote came, while the coyote would be digging this out, they would be leaving on that end. So it's kind of a protection thing on top of having enough food. If it got cold and they couldn't find any food, they store it. And obviously he didn't want to store fresh greens. He wanted them to dry a little bit so he could store them in his house. So as far as what they look like, they're absolutely beautiful. Very chinchilla-like. Their tail is furry. They're really, really beautiful little rats. So I don't know what I'm going to do. But right now I'm going to leave him. He's not bothering me. Got a little nervous when I saw on the camera he was peeking in the door, like maybe there's something in there I can go get. So I'm not sure. And there was one other thing that was really funny, and if I can find the footage, I'll put it in there. But one night when I was filming him, I put a peanut on the step, and he didn't find it. This is horrible to say. But there was a pair of wood roaches that found it. The one found it, and you could actually make a cartoon out of it. He walked up to it. He found the peanut sitting here on the step, and it was like, you could almost look at him and say, oh my gosh, he's thinking, look what I found. I can't believe my eyes. Is this really a peanut? I can't believe it. And he grabs the peanut. I didn't even know they can carry something that big, a full-size peanut. And he runs off, and you could hear him calling, hey, Margaret, look what I've got. We've got dinner. And then she comes running from the other side. She's a little smaller than him. And they both run into the step together with their peanut. Oh my gosh. Funny, but not thrilled about roaches. But you know what? You're going to have all kinds of critters, and that's all part of nature and wildlife. If you don't have the insects, you don't have the furry mammals that go with it, because they all eat this stuff. They all work together, including the birds. Okay, I'm done with my stories. There is more red vein sorrel. I just need to clean it up a little bit, and that's pretty much, like I said, the flower. It's a little pink flower, but this is amazing because I have not had it flower until this year, so I just love that. There is my dazzling blue kale. I trimmed a little bit back as far as the seeds, but again, the goldfinches have been coming with their babies, and they've been feeding their babies and teaching them how to eat the seeds and stuff, and it's just so beautiful to come out here and sit and see that. And so I'm kind of going to leave a lot of it and let them feed their babies, and then as it starts to die back, I will trim it back, all of it back. But pretty much a lot of that seed is gone. There's just a little bit of the seed left from the dazzling blue kale. No, I did not collect it again because I've got collard here. It's all going to intermix, and I wouldn't even know what it would end up to be. But still working. I've still got in there to plant, and this I do have to trim back. All this. I trimmed back a little bit of the spearmint back here, and I planted some seedlings that I had bought and planted. I've got I think there's a watermelon in there and 2 squash. And then here I am clearing back more of the spearmint. We love spearmint, don't get me wrong. And spearmint, I wish this was chocolate mint because I love chocolate mint the best. But I do want to clear it back because I want to be able to get to the back. And we do have snakes, and we have been seeing in certain areas that are cleared the gopher snakes. So if the gopher snakes are here, the rattlesnakes are probably out too. Even though we've just started to warm up, that does mean they're out and about. So I will be clearing a lot of this back. I won't be able to kill it, and that's fine. I don't want to kill it. Chocolate mint and orange, well, orange mint's a little bit stronger than chocolate mint as far as growing, but it seems like the spearmint grows like wild mint. So that's why it's kind of taken over to a point. And that, like I said, is okay. I just trimmed it back. Look, it was all through here. It was all out here. And I left a little piece there by the fountain, which is going to get moved because, again, I want to be able to walk back there. But this is perfectly fine. You just pull it. It's got runners. The whole thing pulls up. So I'm not worried about that. So anyways, I'm going to clear out a little bit more. And if it was chocolate mint, I have found that chocolate mint doesn't grow as vigorously. It grows, but it doesn't get this thickness to it as spearmint does. So if you want to plant something in the ground, plant chocolate mint, because chocolate mint doesn't go as crazy when it grows as like the spearmint does. See the spearmint? Which is good because Gary likes it, but it just will grow a little bit more sparse. Chocolate mint, and this is chocolate mint over here. So I've got chocolate mint growing. This is sage back there. That's garlic chives. I haven't planted anything there. Walking onions, celery, A little bit of old Swiss chard back there, and all the baby walking onions over here that I didn't know what to do with last year. I just stuck them in here. They were so tiny, and now I can start to move them. So that's what's growing there. And then, of course, the sweet potatoes down there, and I guess this is parsley coming up. I haven't done anything in here. It's just doing its own thing. But look at that, chocolate mint coming out of the bottom. And that's why I've talked about, if you don't want to grow mint, don't compost it. Because mint, even on the very bottom, see it's coming out through the holes, that will grow. But see, it's more sparse. It doesn't grow like the spearmint does. So that's why that's a good ground cover for yourself, chocolate mint. Plus it would taste, it not only does it taste good as mint in a tea, but it smells so good if you step on it. All right, so we'll see what happens with the new tub I set up. And then back there, here's my tree collards. I've got one all the way back there. And then like we've already done that. And then there's curly kale, because that's a dazzling blue. And there's some purple curly kale. That's really long. Technically, I probably should have chopped it down. I chopped one down. I did a video of cutting it down. And now look how bushy it got down here. So you can always chop them down if you don't want them to get so tall. Same thing with the tree collard. Look at that. This thing is like 10 feet tall now. And pieces have been breaking off. You shouldn't really leave them get that big. But it's okay. I've been cutting them now. And I'll have to cut this one next and this one. And chopping them up. And I'm going to plant them all over. I'm putting a lot of tulle into pots like that. And then what I'm doing, well, I shouldn't say into that. I'm using the pots, making stakes, and then tooling around. I'll do a video on it because it's too hard to explain. But I do have it in some of my own other videos. I'll make another one. And what I'm going to start doing is the pots that are holding the posts, that are holding, you know, the tomato stakes that are holding the tulle up, I'm going to start putting pieces of tree collard in there, and then I can always move it. Once it takes root, you can just stick it anywhere. Look how that one was left in the pot, and the roots have left the pot into the ground, and this thing is a monster. This is no joke. It's a monster, and I love this. It tastes so good. To me, it tastes much better than regular collard. This is regular collard, and this one, let me walk back here, is kind of taken off everywhere. And I am going to trim some of this back. I have started to trim a little bit, but it just seems to taste better. That one's got a milder taste, the tree collard, and then the regular collard is real, strong. But both of them are good. But see how the difference is? Even though this has got massive trunks on it, and it kind of wound around this one plant all over the place, literally snaked everywhere. That's why it just really bothers me to cut it out. But tree collard just keeps going up and up. Now, if it falls, Gary's got one that fell in his garden, it will lay on the ground, the trunk like that, and then it will send shoots up into the air. It's amazing how they want to survive. They want to keep going. So we'll see how things go, but I don't want to throw it out. I do use the leaves for like a chop and drop to compost. That's the best compost. And I want to do a video on wood chips and chop and drop and all that soon. My thoughts on that, and it's just been a lot of questions, so I'll have to get to that. My mind's always racing ahead of what I want to do. This is my other purple sprouting broccoli, and we've had a lot of it growing, and I think it's coming to an end right now. See? It was beautiful, and the birds just loved the seeds, and they taste really good too. So finally, it took a year to grow any purple sprouting, any purple broccoli on it. Unlike my green sprouting broccoli that grew all year, little tiny heads, the purple didn't grow like that. It took a year, but that's okay. We enjoyed the leaves, and we eat the leaves. So it doesn't matter. It's no loss. I'm going to plant another squash back there. We'll see what happens. I put a basket over it right now because there's no tulle. Don't want the rabbits to get it. But I'm worried about this because last year when I planted, my moringa got so big. We trimmed it back a little bit. And it shaded this whole area, so I couldn't grow any squash. So we'll see what happens. Look at strawberries. Keep picking strawberries. So that's really fun. But I'll see how it goes. If this gets really big and bushy, then that squash won't grow. And then here is the papayas. Now look how tall it's got. I can't even believe, was it 12 feet tall? This is unreal. Look at that. And the whole thing, a lot of it died back from the cold. It really struggled, but it made it and it held on to its papayas. This one, Gary said, is strawberry papaya, so we'll see. We have not gotten any ripe fruit yet. Plenty off the other papaya. We eat it all year, but this is going to be the first of strawberry papaya, and he wants to do some cuttings. And he's going to move some of the baby plants, he told me yesterday. There's a few babies and they're struggling because they can't grow in here. This is in a container, and the roots have long left. We actually made the holes bigger, so it's in a container, and the roots have all left. They've gone into the ground. That's why it's so big. But what I love about containers is when I water that, this plant is getting the water. There's no doubt it's getting the water. It has to. Kind of like the garlic chives back there. Even though they're sitting in the ground there, they're still in a container, and they are getting the water. So it's worked really good with the papayas. So it is just massive, but it's because it's in a container like that, is what I was saying. I don't believe these would spread and have enough room to grow. So he's going to pull some of the smaller ones out. If it was in the ground, you could leave it. They'd push over and they'd keep going. But there's only so far they can push over in a container. And this was not planned. So for some of you that are watching this for the first time going, oh my gosh, why was she so stupid to put him and plant him in there? This was a compost in place container. And Gary had bought some strawberry papaya, and I composted it. And after putting it in my compost, which is a cold compost, that's what I do. And my compost is alive. It's not a hot compost. It's a cold compost. So being alive like that, things are growing all the time. And that's how this grew. I mean, that's how all our papayas grew. By composting, and then the papaya plants would be coming up, and we'd be moving them. So that's why it's in there. And since it grew so fast and took off, we left it. We just figured might as well leave it and see what happens. And then over here, I'm still working here. I'm trying to get my act together and figure out what I want to put in here. There's a small celery plant that came up. Celery comes up everywhere on its own. This is celery seed, and it is so fine. And so when it falls, if it finds water, it will grow. So we've got celery flowering there, and then of course more chocolate mint. And then we've got some Swiss chard in there, and this stringy thing that's growing is a purple kale. Look at that, curly kale. They're beautiful. And then this moringa that I think I'm going to chop its head off because that is not a good place to grow. So we'll see how this goes. This is one of them I planted out here. And that struggling little tomato, but I've got a cutting that came up in there. So that's going real good. So now let's go in the other part of the yard. So now we're in the other part of my yard. And I haven't really done anything with this. This is the container I found in the trash that was already broken. I had some cucumbers in here, and if I do not put tulle on the cucumbers, which I did not, and this is just kind of thrown here, they will get to it. It seems like the squirrels chew it, and they eat the whole stalk. I don't understand, but they do. It's just an old radish coming up. So I haven't decided if I'm going to plant in there or not, since I am still working on the garden back there. I still have room and places I can plant things. And now, of course, I've got my deck garden going, and that's got more food than anything. I seem to go out there and just grab a whole bunch. So we'll see if I'm going to even bother with this, or maybe I should just take all the great soil out because I composted there and move it into something else or get something else there. I'm not sure. I could actually just tulle it and maybe take everything apart and grow it right in the ground. So we'll see what I decide because I'm not here yet. I'm working still in the other part of the garden. Rosemary, of course, is growing back here, and then here's the other papayas we've got. Again, these came up in my compost bins, like I've talked about 100 times, and it was not intentional to grow them, but they started growing in my compost bins that I do, and we moved them, and I don't even think I moved it. I think this one I was composting in place in that big tub, and it just grew. So this is why they're all here. All three of them are here, and then there's a lot of small ones now we've moved here. But with papaya, and I've talked about this a lot, and I want to go into detail on this or I'll be another hour here. Just make sure they're heavy feeders that you're feeding them. And when I say feeding them, I feed back from the garden. That's their own leaves. We have a container there. You water it, it will rot into the ground, and that's what they're eating. Their own leaves and even other leaves. We did wrap some tulle around it because something had figured out that there was fruit up there. It could have been a rat, could have been a squirrel. Once we put the tulle there, Gary wrapped his pink tulle, his coral tulle, and that stopped that. And then here, we're not sure if a rabbit was chewing on it or what was chewing on it. I was going to wrap it, but whatever was doing it stopped. So if it starts it again, then maybe at that point, I'll wrap the tulle. But right now, everything seems okay. See, another container. You want to have containers and compost in place, or compost some sort of way next to your papayas, or they will not fruit, we have found out. They really need a whole lot of food. Look at this. Seedlings of pomegranates that I planted, and now it looks like we're gonna have pomegranates. This is another one that was in my yard. I had composted in that container to grow a zucchini or something, and then these things came up, more papayas. So I just moved it here and I buried it partway in the ground, so this way it can set its roots. Those pots were not really buried, but these pots are, this one is buried. So whatever happens, happens, but that, it can set its roots into the ground and take off if it wants to. Orange trees, I haven't done anything with that. Again, coming up in my compost, orange seeds grow. And then this is another one that's been here. It looks like it's just starting to take off. And then the other papaya plant, doing really good. So we'll see. This is the one that really got hit by the cold because the cold air was coming up the canyon. And we weren't sure, well, I wasn't sure if it was going to really make it or how it was going to act because it was so cold. But it seems to be doing good, and look at all the new growth. So now that we've warmed up, it's happy. And again, in a pot, when I water that pot, it's getting 100% of that water. That water's not going anywhere, because if you had it in the ground, and sometimes there could be like an underground, let's say like an underground river or road or trail, sometimes you water and you think your plant's getting it, but it could be taking off in another direction and the roots aren't getting the full amount of water you think you're giving it. But when it's in a pot, they're getting it for sure, and that's why I think they've done so well. I think that's why a lot of plants have done so well. And then this celery fell over. I should stake it up or do something with it. Again, it came up in this compost container here that we throw leaves and things in for the papaya. So I'll probably get that staked up. Oh, there's the wren's nest. They have long left the nest. They have raised their babies, or their baby, I should say, and they have left. Okay, let's go look at the wall. Now we're at the wall, which is probably going to be my winter garden to try to grow zucchini and different things because the wall stays so nice and warm. I don't know what kind of winter and spring we're going to have next year, but this year we didn't have spring. We went from winter to winter. The zucchini I planted in here, I'm still working in here and moving things around, but it's full of zucchini in there. Look at that. So it's doing really good, and I've already put my stakes here, and I'm going to put some tulle around it, because I don't want the rabbits to get in there and eat it, and this is really way out in the open. Oh my goodness, we're going to have to stop. We have a monarch butterfly. I'm not sure if it was a monarch or a viceroy, because I know the viceroy is a little bit smaller than the monarch, but I have not seen one here for the longest time, so that kind of got me excited to see. But she's gone, she took off, she went to the moringa tree. Anyways, let's go back to this. So there's the zucchini, and I'm going to clean that up. I want to get more planted in here. This was the double-decker tub. I had 2 zucchinis growing in here last year, but it matched my other tubs. You'll see when I go further down. And so I had Gary pull it out, and then I dragged it to the other side. And I'm just going to plant a zucchini in there. And I am going to put tulle around here because I don't want to lose the plants, because I think that was part of the problem, not being able to grow zucchini, because some of them got chewed by, I think, coyotes, but I'm not sure. It could have been rabbits. This tomato plant is an old one. As you could see, there's so much back here that needs to be cut out, and I need to cut it out because it kind of winds around. And I have to see, look at all the tomatoes back here. I have to see exactly where it's going and is it worth saving. And if I'm not sure, I can always plant another one next to it, and if the other one takes off, then I can always take out the old one. So we'll see. Celery, again, once you plant celery, if you've got places where it can find water, it's going to grow. This is all celery here. It will just grow and grow, but celery does need water. It needs to be watered. Look at all the tomatoes. But this is the moringa. This one did beautiful all winter. Still had a few little leaves here and there. And again, it did well because of the microclimate here, the water, and keeping it watered and keeping it warm. This wall stays warm, and that's what really helped this particular moringa tree. So I want to get a few more moringas planted down here, and I am also growing them just to have in small pots on the deck, to just have the leaves here and there and just let it grow for the one season because we have so many seeds. But here I want to plant some that will stay and produce seeds and keep growing. So we'll see how it goes, but hopefully I'll get a whole bunch more moringas because this wall is its own microclimate. So we'll see how that goes. Tubs in there with walking onions. Sow thistle, that needs to come out, but the goldfinches have been just eating this, and a lot of the birds eat this seeds, you know, this is their food. Eggplant, just need to clean it up, and more of my, well, Swiss chard, as you saw further down there, it's going to seed. This is the one that's kind of green and red. Gary prefers the ones that are green, but we have both, so it doesn't matter. We have the red, we have the green and red, the mixed one, and the green. And here is the tubs. That's why I pulled that other tub out, because they all match. So I'm going to kind of line them up, figure out how I want to grow in here and what I want to grow. And I think I want to do peppers because the wall is so warm, and pepper plants really like it warm. And we are a little on the cool side for peppers here. So I want to get peppers here and then moringa in between. That will be real nice. And the truck bed. And yes, that avocado tree is still there. And yes, it hung on to the 3 fruits. So we'll see if the fruit's any good. I have told this tree, if that fruit is no good, the tree is going. Can you believe it? 3 fruits, 1, 2, and 3 up there. That's what it produced. If there's more hidden, who knows? But that came up in my compost in place, the way I do, and I left it, and it's still growing. This is where the baby rabbits were raised. She raised another clutch of rabbits here. There was another litter in here, and they've just left. We've seen them running around the yard, and I've kind of let this go. I haven't done anything with this. All that's growing in here is, you know, it's all gone to seed, is Swiss chard, and it reseeds itself and grows. Years ago, I grew a bunch of spaghetti squash here, so I'm not sure. I did put a container there, so I might, you know, do something different as the season goes on. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do yet, but there's a container there I can grow in there, and I am putting, you know, chop and drop in that container. In other words, composting in place, and we'll see how it goes. I have so much growing, it's not like I need to grow something else. I'd like to grow more different things, but I like growing more than I need, and this way I know I can share with nature and whoever wants, my family. And I've got my granddaughter's got her own garden, I heard, growing now. So she's a little one, and that's really good. I'm glad she's interested in gardening. And this came up in the wood chips. Gary said to me, "Did you plant an avocado tree in the middle of the wood chips?" I said no, because he did get a load that had avocados in it. So it came up on its own, and that we're going to leave. It's actually a perfect place for it. If it really takes hold and grows, we could either graft it or see what it does, but it's not in a bad place. It's off to where we don't really park, and it came up on its own. And a lot of times when you move them out of the compost bins, they don't do well. Avocados don't like to be moved. So we'll see what happens, but it's growing on its own. It just came up. And then, of course, Gary's bees are down there, and they're doing really good. You can't really see them, but they are working down there, and they are really working this pepper tree. It's still early, so there's a few bees around. They're just starting to come out. But there's his bees down there, and he's got his barbecue he set up like a beehive. And he got himself a beehive he's going to put together. Our neighbors gave him a beehive, and it's kind of in parts, but he used to raise bees, so he's going to do something else. But let's see if we can zoom in on his bees. I don't know if I want to walk down there right now. Can you imagine? He built that, if you've seen the old videos, he built that box so he would have an owl come. He put that box up a palm tree, climbed the palm tree, and hooked it up out front. And within a week, the bees found it. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? The crazy part was he climbed the palm tree in the middle of the night when it was dark so he could take the box down after the bees got in there so he can move it. And he moved it during the day. Oh, if you want to see the story, the links, I'll put the link underneath so you can see it in the description. But yes, he moved it, and he's happy with his bees. And you know what? I will have to admit, I can walk there. He can walk in there. He was peeking in there, but they sealed it, so he can't open the lid. And there's a rabbit down there. But yeah, he was peeking inside, and they sealed the lid, so he can't get in there anymore. But he can look through the hole, and they don't bother him. I, knock on wood, have not been stung yet, so he's lucky, because I've only been stung once in my life. And they don't seem to bother me. They come into the garden and they're very mellow bees. He lucked out because he could have ended up with some wild bees that weren't so nice, but his bees are nice, so he wants to have them split off. So that's it for today, July 1st, halfway through the year. I cannot believe it. And now I'm going to go work in the garden and see what else I want to plant, where I want to move things. I have so much to do. There's not enough hours in the day for me. But this has just been really nice. Everybody needs a garden. And it doesn't mean it's got to be a big garden. It could be a couple little pots sitting somewhere that you sit there and enjoy your plants that you're growing, and especially something you can pick and eat, even something as simple as mint. So with that, have a wonderful day, and don't forget to eat what you grow. Bye-bye, everybody.